Hello. If you didn't already know, my name is Parmeet, and I'm a member of the SOLTA team at CKSS. In this video, I will briefly go over some of my major contributions, any challenges I faced, and improvements that I would make, as well as go over some of the things I've learned from this experience. I'll be talking about 3 examples. 1. Sourcing parts for the detectors. 2. Outreach. And 3. Developing a UI. Apart from these, I played a role in implementing ways to manage the team and keeping everyone on task. If I were to summarize my role in the team, it would be acting as a backbone and working behind many of our projects and keeping everything working, giving it purpose. So let's start with sourcing parts for the detectors. So the cosmic ray detectors that we are building is based on an open source project by Cosmic Watch. For us to build the detectors, not only did we need to purchase the necessary components, but build it as well. However, one of the largest obstacles in this step was that our school was unable to build the PCBs ourselves, as the PCBs require surface mount parts. And if you didn't know, PCBs are printed circuit boards, and they're a major component of the detectors themselves. So, to overcome this, we're given a $1,000 budget so that we can get other manufacturers to build it for us. So to meet this task, we needed the help of specialized PCB manufacturers. But before anything, I first needed to understand the specifications of the build. And to do this, I had to read over the instructions that they posted on their website, as well as watch their YouTube tutorials for making the detectors. Next, I drafted a bill of materials on spreadsheet using the list of parts recommended by Cosmic Watch. Once I had an understanding of it, I needed to contact some PCB manufacturers, tell them our requirements, and get a quote for the cost. The tricky part for this was that not all PCB manufacturers were able to build both the board and populate it with the parts we needed, and both of those things are something we can't do at our school ourselves. So when we did find manufacturers, they often had different suppliers than the ones that I found myself, so I had to constantly modify the bill of materials to accommodate for the different manufacturers, as well as adjust the price. And once I started corresponding with multiple manufacturers, I had to compare the pricing of all of them and see which one worked best for us and fit our budget. So in terms of challenges, for sure one of them was definitely getting everything to meet the budget, because most of the manufacturers that could do everything we needed charged around $200 or $300 for just one PCB, which makes our goal to make 7 or 8 of them quite difficult to achieve. Another issue was time. Not only did we need to research, and I had to find the prices of them, talk to people, order them, but I also had to wait for them to be manufactured and brought back, and then I needed to complete the build afterwards as well, which is hard to handle with ongoing tasks, and it's just being me there, right? And then for improvements that could have been made, is one that's really important is that we could get different manufacturers to build the components, and I realized this after speaking to many manufacturers, but building the board and populating it and using 2 manufacturers to do each part would significantly reduce the price. And another is to at least get a prototype ready. So despite cost, at least there's a proof of concept. I think what I took away from this experience is how to communicate with manufacturers. So I learned some terminology through that, and how to write effective and professional emails. I also went over creating a bill of materials and looking up ways to find the necessary items that are of good quality and still meet our budget. And I think finally, and most importantly, I learned the importance of making connections and using them. So earlier this year, when I was finding different manufacturers, I came upon some of the PCB manufacturers because I was introduced to a Slack chat during my time in co-op. This Slack chat had a select group of members that were especially good at technology or were in related fields of technology, and the chat was known as Tech Masters. And I started talking to the CEO of an early startup company, an AI company, and she's the one who actually recommended some of the manufacturers to me. And not only that, but Mr. Robon was also able to talk to people at Silicon Halton that he knew and help us with manufacturing process. Alright, so the next thing is outreach. For our project to mean anything, we needed to build an identity for ourselves, and I was tasked with the job to do this. So we needed to share our idea through a means that is accessible by everyone, and we also had to have it so that it could showcase our progress even without any final product. So many different initiatives were taken to do this, and the most important one I would say is getting the website up. So although I didn't make the website through code itself, I did have a large influence on the design and the layout of the website, which I think is a very important aspect as it allows information to be presented in an easy and simple way while still looking professional and like making an illusion that there's a lot of content even though there wasn't. I also created a Twitter account for which we also already have many followers despite no information and no serious tweets or anything. I also developed a poster that encompassed all the information about our project and our goals to give out to different schools. And lastly, I opened up a GoFundMe page that managed to raise funding despite there not being any proof of concept or anything particular to show. So that especially shows the importance of good design, and I would say the illusion that the website created. So although the challenges in this section weren't that significant, I did have to brainstorm and conceptualize some different approaches, as well as work with the team to get their input, as everyone has like a different perspective in how they see and find things appealing. Like if I were to improve anything, it would definitely be to be more aggressive in sharing the project on social media and with people I know, and getting everyone involved. As if it's easier, the easier it is for people to find out about us, the better off our identity is going to be. Because our website, once people can access our website, they can get everything they need to know about it. But I think one of the shortcomings was that nobody really knew about us, and that's what slowed us down in terms of outreach. But getting the app to the App Store may be like a big step in achieving this as well. So what I've learned from this is definitely the importance, or the illusion of design and how it can make something minor look like a big deal. And this all ultimately falls into self-marketing and finding ways in which one can bring out and share their best qualities. So finally, I'll be talking about the UI design. So although I didn't work much on the visuals of the user interface, I did help design it. So as we know, one of the most important parts of making an app is the user interface itself, as this is how people are going to interact with the product, and it's important to set a strong impression. It is also important to make the app easy to navigate so that everyone can start using it without having to think much or use any instructions. So again, I didn't really work much on the visuals, but I did have a strong influence on the usability and functionality. And the UI started just as a flowchart on a whiteboard and me brainstorming like possible content and how the user would interact with the app itself. And this required a lot of thinking, especially using different perspectives, as all the users have a different perception and a different way of using it. And I needed to plan out a way that the data can be presented easy and easy to understand even at a glance. So after it was time, I also needed to implement the functionality into code itself. So before anything, I'd never actually worked with UI. I had programmed, but I never worked on UI itself. So I had to watch many videos to learn the basic concepts on making this and make a bare bones app that, like you can see, as a skeleton structure for the app, which performed all the functions without any design on it. And I helped to do this for both iOS and Android using Swift and Android Studio. So I would say the first challenge itself was just brainstorming an effective layout for the app, and this took a few days as I needed to account for everything the app had, get input from other people, and see what worked best. And then another challenge would be learning the code. As like I've said, even though I've programmed before, UI is not something I've done, let alone making an app. So this was a bit of a learning curve. I had to watch many tutorials, basic tutorials, to understand how everything was working and how to work in the environments for Swift and Android Studio. I think in terms of improvements, I should have spent more time going in depth for the code, as like right now our UI is heavily dependent on non-coding aspect of the environment and doesn't really use code that much. And this means like it's not as comprehensive, and we can't use more complex features that otherwise would make our app look better or even easier to use. And then I would say lastly, one of the major things I learned from this experience is the difference between an effective and ineffective UI, especially features that make up a good UI, whether it's aesthetics or usability. It's important to factor in who's using the app, which actually leads me to my next point, and it's that I can't just program something based on what I think. It's really important to get feedback from other people to get an idea of how other people would interact with it. And this is quite different from most programming, because many people make like a project based on what they think. So like, for example, I'm making a game, I'm going to make it with controls that I feel best. But something like an app that's going to be on the App Store, used by many people, and something that like people of all ages are going to use, you have to account for the fact that people have different understanding of it, and you need to incorporate that into your design. But I think that's it for me. Thank you for listening.